Welcome to What You Need to Know for Worship Musicians. In this first video in this series, we are going to learn about the major scale. What is the major scale? There are three primary ways for a beginner to understand the major scale. Number one right here, you can understand the major scale as a pattern of whole steps and half steps. So first of all, what is a whole step and what is a half step? Let's start with a half step. A half step is the smallest distance that you can get between any two notes. Say, for instance, we have the note B right here and the note C. There are no other notes between B and C, so the distance between B and C is a half step. Maybe then you can guess what a whole step is based on what you know about a half step now. A half step is the smallest distance, and a whole step is equal to two half steps. The distance from G to A is one whole step because there are two half steps here between the notes G and A flat and the note A flat and A. There's two half steps there, therefore it is one whole step. So the major scale takes these whole steps and half steps and puts them in a pattern, and we can see that right over here: whole step, half step, whole step, half step, whole, half, whole, half. So the easiest way that we can see this is through the C major scale. We can see right here the C major scale, and if we start on the note C right here and we go to D, the next note, that is a whole step, and that's the first step in the pattern. Then we have another whole step from D to E, a half step from E to F, another whole step from F to G, whole step G to A, whole step A to B, and the final half step B to C. We can see that pattern laid out here: whole, half, whole, half. The next way to understand the major scale as a beginner is number two right here, as a set of solfege syllables, and this is something that is very commonly taught: do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, and do. The easiest way to understand what solfege does is it replaces the letter names from the musical alphabet A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. It replaces those with a syllable. Whether you're in the key of C major or the key of B flat or the key of F sharp, you can be in any key and your solfege syllables remain the same. The third way to understand how the major scale works is through the number system, and this is just like the solfege syllable system. All we're doing is we are replacing the letter names of the notes with a number. It never changes, no matter what key you're playing in, no matter what scale you're playing in. One is always one, whether you're in the key of B flat or C or G flat or whatever. You can't really use solfege and you can't really use the number system if you don't know that most important thing, which is the pattern of the major scale. There are, of course, many different ways to understand the major scale. We can memorize all of the major scales, which isn't necessarily a requirement unless you're a piano player. Another way that we can do it is by recognizing key signatures. This is in musical notation when we're reading music from a piece of paper. Another way, number three right here, analyzing chord progressions, and this is one that I do all the time, especially if I have a student that brings a song to me and they're like, I want to learn this song, and I have to look at it in like 10 seconds and know how to play the song so I can teach it to them. Another way that we can learn and really know the major scale, and this is super advanced, but by expanding your knowledge to all of the non-major scale families, which means the minor scales, harmonic scales, whole tone scales, etc., all of the different kinds of families of scales that are out there, and also the modes. And I'm not going to teach what is a mode or how do you use a mode. That's an advanced way, a very advanced way of really locking in your knowledge of the major scale. That being said, we're going to focus on these primary methods, the pattern of whole steps and half steps, solfege, and the number system. Next, let's look at a couple of terms and definitions that you'll definitely need to know. The first term and its definition is the musical alphabet, and that's what you see right here, this big circle of notes. The musical alphabet are the letter names. You can see right here it's the 7 letter names for the 12 notes that exist: A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Those are the 7 letters. We have these 5 sharp and flat notes as well that share those letter names, so we're not using more letters. We only have 7 letters, but we also have these additional 5 sharp and flat notes. We have 7 letter names for the 12 notes that exist. We've already talked about what a half step is. It's the smallest distance possible between 2 notes, and that's something I want to re-emphasize. It's the space between the notes. That's what's most important. Of course, a whole step is equal to 2 half steps. We've already mentioned that. Of course, we should have a definition of what the major scale is. So the major scale is a pattern of whole steps and half steps. We can start this pattern on any note in the alphabet. Here again, we can see the major scale pattern: whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. We have sharps. A sharp is when we move clockwise around the musical alphabet, raising the pitch. Now flats is the opposite. Flats is moving counterclockwise around the musical alphabet. So there's our basic terms and definitions and a nice little introduction to the major scale. Let's see now a few quick examples of major scales and how we arrive at them and how we can think of them using these 3 things: the whole steps and half steps pattern, the number system, and the solfege as well. We've already seen the key of C major. We can see it again right here. We have the letter name, the notes in the scale. We have the number that is assigned to that note, and we have the solfege, which is assigned to that note as well. The solfege and the numbers, of course, are always equal to each other. Here is C. It's the first note, and it's called do in solfege. Here's D. It's the second note, and it's called re in solfege. Here's E, the third note. That's mi. Now we're on F. This is the fourth note, and it's called fa. Here is G. It's the fifth note, and it's called sol. Here is A, the sixth note, and it's called la. Here's B, the seventh note. It's called T. And finally, we come back again to the first note, C, which is again do. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. Or in solfege, we can start here at do, and we can go do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Here's another example now, the key of B major. This key I chose because it has sharp notes in it, and we can see those labeled down here: B, C sharp, D sharp, E, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, and B. So we've got 5 sharps in this scale, and we can see the same pattern laid out here. We can see whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. We can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. We can see do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Let's see the key of B flat. So we can see the notes of the scale: B flat, C, D, E flat, F, G, A, and then you're back to B flat again. And over here around the circle of the musical alphabet, we can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. You can see whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. None of this has changed. All of it is the same. What's the only thing that's changing here? It's the notes, and it's whether we have sharp notes, whether we have flat notes. Finally, in closing, I want to give you a couple things to leave you with. We have 3 rules of the major scale. And for the most part, if you break one of these rules, you're going to be breaking all of the other rules as well. The first rule is we can't have any duplicate notes. And the second rule is we can't have any notes excluded. We have to include all of the notes from the alphabet: A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. The third rule is sharp and flat notes will never exist together in any one major scale. It's always only sharp notes, flat notes, or natural notes. Here's an example right here, the A major scale. And of course I've got highlighted here a wrong note, and it breaks all of these rules right here, and we can see how just one note, one wrong note, will break all 3 of these rules at the same time. So the first note is A, and then we go from A a whole step to B. Another whole step is this note right here. Now we can either call it C sharp or D flat, but if we call it D flat, then we don't have any notes named C in the scale. And of course this gives us another problem right away, because after this note, D flat, we're calling it D flat, that's wrong, but the next step is a half step, and that's to this note right here, which is called D. So now we've got 2 of the same note, and we've got 1 missing note. Again, this is breaking the third rule. We have a flat note, D flat, with sharp notes, F sharp, and G sharp. And you know, if we change these to flat notes, then we're doing even more damage, and we're excluding even more notes, and we're doubling even more notes. We're causing a whole bunch of different problems for ourselves. Follow these 3 rules, you'll never have a problem. You will never confuse yourself, and you'll never confuse anybody else. Another little piece of information right here, there are 15 major scales. We have 7 notes in the alphabet. Now we can have all 7 of those notes be sharp, we can have all 7 of those notes be flat, or we can have none of those notes be sharp or flat. So that gives us 7 sharp scales, 7 flat scales, and 1 with none. Next, the most common way for major scales to be organized is by the circle of fifths. This is different from the circle of the musical alphabet right here, but you will see the circle of fifths if you are, if you're actively pursuing learning and growing and developing your musical skills and striving for excellence. You will come across the circle of fifths. So I'm just letting you know about it right now. The last thing that I want to leave you with is that the number and solfege systems, they both work in the same way. You don't have to use both of them, is what I'm saying here. You can choose one or the other. I use both, and I use both all the time. There are different use cases and different ways to use the number system and solfege, and different ways that I use them. It's highly recommended, of course, that's what I put here, is highly recommended that you become fluent in both, because you'll find, like I have, that it's better to use solfege sometimes, it's better to use numbers sometimes, and later on when you have all of your scales memorized, sometimes it's better to just think about the notes in the scale rather than numbers or solfege. You don't have to know both of them, but it is good to, and you probably should. That concludes this video, what you need to know for worship musicians. And of course, this first video was covering a lot. There was a lot in this video. So you might want to go back. You might want to revisit some of this. You might want to search out more resources on the internet. If the way that one teacher explains something to you doesn't work for you, or it doesn't make sense, go find another teacher. Find as many different sources as you can and learn the same thing as many different ways as you can. Have it explained to you in as many different ways as you can, because the more variety there is in your learning, the better you will learn whatever it is you're trying to learn.